Unmediated life. I walk about 2 hours a day so I can feel the ground under my feet. It's unmediated. Unmediated is not mediated, not communicated or transformed by an intervening agency. In the middle of the word unmediated, hidden there, is media. Media is the original plural of medium, and medium is from an ancient root, medio, for middle. Mass media is a medium of communication, such as newspapers, radio, and television. Mass media often stands between us and the real news about our lives. On my walks, there's nothing much between me, my body, and Earth. I don't traverse the Earth on Google Earth by moving my mouse. I don't read of its wonders in an ebook. I don't watch a colorful documentary on YouTube. I see Earth's flowers, smell its grass, hear its birds, taste its fog on winter days, and touch its soft feathers when they molt to earth. The media scholar Marshall McLuhan and I became friends when I was 11. We met at a public library. My mother dropped her 4 kids off while she went grocery shopping. For the bring one, take one bookcase, I took in a paperback ordered at school from Scholastic and took a book home titled The Medium is the Message, Massage. Later I found there The Mechanical Bride, The Gutenberg Galaxy, and my favorite, Understanding Media. These changed me. Luckily, I had no idea he was a philosopher or someone a preteen should not read. I understood enough, and he stayed with me. I returned to his work often over decades. When I read his ideas that most people are unaware blissfully, as he says, of what the media do to them, and do not notice that, quote, the medium is also the message and the massage, in that it literally works over and saturates and molds and transforms every sense ratio. Well, my seeing was changed forever. I started noticing the radio and the TV in new ways. In graduate school, much later on, I learned McLuhan did his dissertation on grammar, logic, and rhetoric, all my favorite inquiries, and was himself influenced by Jesuit scientist and philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. So I can study media and learn with and from my students. Now I teach a course at University of California, Berkeley titled The Meme and the Human and AI, Digital Literacies, inspired by that chance encounter in a public library decades ago. Memorably, the introduction to the first edition of his Understanding Media begins, quote, after 3,000 years of explosion by means of fragmentary and mechanical technologies, the Western world is imploding. McLuhan adds, today, after more than a century of electric technology, we have extended our central nervous system itself in a global embrace, abolishing both space and time as far as our planet is concerned. He argues that we are approaching, now are in, he might say, the final phase of the extensions of human, the technological simulation of consciousness, and he says that the creative process of knowing will be collectively, because we have collectively and corporately extended our senses and nerves by the various media. McLuhan is an expert in pointing out the obvious that was not so obvious until he points it out. Quote, any extension, like a bike, car, cell phone, or social media, I add, whether of skin, hand, or foot, or consciousness, affects the whole psychic and social complex. Sensory overload can prevent us from living in the present, unmediated. As McLuhan observes, quote, this is the age of anxiety, for the reason of the electric implosion that compels commitment and participation quite regardless of any point of view. He also gave me hope by naming, quote, the aspiration of our time as wholeness, empathy, and depth of awareness, and saw it as a natural adjunct of electric technology by which he would also have meant our internet and social media today. The essences of these electric technology changes are hard for us to detect, however, while they're happening. McLuhan calls this the invisibility of any environment during the period of its innovation. He compares the, quote, content of a medium to, quote, the juicy piece of meat carried by the burglar to distract the watchdog of the mind. He adds that while a movie's content is a novel, a play, or an opera, that the effect of the movie form is not related to its program content. He saw, for example, that these media come to us, as the radio did in his day, with person-to-person directness that is private and intimate, and that touches remote and forgotten chords. This tends, he says, to numb our central nervous system. Because, he says, when it is, quote, extended and exposed, we're overwhelmed, and that's one reason, he notes, that we live so much with a rear view perspective, what McLuhan calls in one interview the rear view mirror view, because we're numbed by the new technologies as they're making a new environment. We work to make the old environment that much more visible then by turning it into an art form and attaching ourselves to its objects and vibes, which explains a good deal of the present day nostalgia. Anyone wanting to read more about this can find media scholar Lemore Schiffman's Memes and Digital Culture, where she helps us understand today's, quote, participatory culture. All I can say is that awareness for me includes walking the earth and listening to egrets, my family, my friends, my students, and everyone I meet. Trying to be a real listener is a path to walk also. And I try to listen to my ancestors, and these include those I've lived with and translated or communed with, like Catherine of Genoa, who lived from 1447 to 1510. It would be wonderful if we could all read Friedrich von Hugel's The Mystical Element of Religion as Studied in St. Catherine of Genoa and Her Friends, published by James Clark in London in 1908. In fact, I put that there to remind me to one day. My bucket list of books grows apace. But we don't really need to read von Hugel. Instead, we can go back to the words of Catherine. It's one reason I translate, or I've translated, and one reason I look up word etymologies every day. I go to the spring, the source of the water. It's also why I read the Bible and other scriptures with commentaries and history books beside me, to reveal their words' meanings and their contexts, and to reflect on living out the word, God is love, into today. These practices have also been in our life-changing helps with my decades-long undiagnosed dyslexia. If I go to the sources of classic works translated in English and read their original words, and if I go to word sources and read their origins, then I can make up my own mind what they mean for me as factually based as possible. It's also why I practice and study Richard Schwartz's internal family systems, and that's for another blog piece. I want to go to my own sources, my own parts, because I've experienced and do experience that the prepackaged, systemically taught monomind paradigm is not true for me, as Beatrice Brutteau and many past mystics said and experienced. All of us have, quote, artificial selves and a, quote, natural self. And I call these my non-authentic, non-relaxed selves on the one hand, and my true or authentic self on the other. Students always say, you do you, or be authentic, that self. About the true self, in a very encouraging way, Catherine of Genoa gives us a word still fresh as dew for today. And I often think how often she visited hospitals and worked in them, putting her love to practice. Catherine is famous for saying, according to the translation you read either as, my me is God, or my deepest me is God. For God, love, or kindness, or ultimate reality, or something more are often preferred. Her words sparked the question, what does it mean to be human? Not to be a screen. And what did she actually say in Italian? In Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. Look at how the Dio and the twice mio rhyme. The Dio meaning God and the mio meaning my. That's the medium, being the message, massage. The A means is, and the essere means to be, or being. The English words essence, essential, and presence all have the same root. Latin esse for to be, from the Latin root es, to be. I go to sleep now saying, in Dio è il mio essere, il mio me, on mindful repeat. I walk through the marsh saying, in Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. Then I stop to listen to the egrets. Because as Rilke writes, through all creatures extends one single space, world space within. Through us the birds fly silently. Oh, wanting to grow, I look outside at the tree that grows in me. From durch alle Wesen reicht der eine Raum, Weltinnenraum, from Rilke's Gedichte, 1906 to 1926. In Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. If I translated Catherine's word, which I try not to because I'd rather experience it, I'd hear, in God is my being, my me, capitalized me. I go to sleep now saying, in Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. I walk through the marsh saying, in Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. I remember how Catherine of Genoa again helped people at a hospital. I try to teach and be kind. In Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. I teach, I sleep, I walk through the marsh, I listen to the raucous cries of the egrets, unmediated, without media. In Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. In Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. In Dio è il mio essere, il mio me. Thank you.